Good morning, students. Welcome back to the course of software testing methodologies. This video is brought to you by Newton's Group of Institutions, Macharla. This is Arvind Egireddy from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. So today, in this lecture, we will see the in-depth overview of the path testing and its applications. And once after closing this particular session, we will be able to understand the concepts of path testing, and we will be in a position to identify the different components of the control flow diagram, and we will understand the difference between the control flow diagram and the flow chart. And here we will discuss about how the control flow graphs can be represented in the form of an linked list notation. And we will understand the concepts that are related to what is path testing, what is selection criteria, and what are its limitations. Here we also discuss about how to interpret the control graph and demonstrate the complete path testing to achieve C1 plus C2. So here we will classify the predicates and variables as a dependent and independent, correlated and uncorrelated variables. And here we study about the path sensitizing methods, and we classify whether these paths are achievable or not. And we also identify the problems that come due to coincidental corrections, and then we choose a path which instrumentation methods to overcome such a kind of problems. Now let us discuss the basics of path testing. So in the study of these basics of path testing, let us first discuss about what is path testing. So here, path testing, which is the name which is given to the family of test techniques which are based on some judicially selecting a set of test paths through the program. So here, if the set of paths are properly chosen, then we have achieved some measure to our test through something. For example, if we are able to pick enough path to ensure that every source statement that has been executed at least once. Here we have to understand that these path testing techniques are the oldest of all the structural test techniques. So here, from this particular statement, we can conclude that path testing is one of the oldest testing technique of the structural test technique. So it is an structural testing. So here, path testing is most applicable to the new softwares for unit testing, and it is an structural testing technique. Here, for doing this particular path testing, the one who does the path testing, he has to require the complete knowledge of the program structure. So here we are going to use this particular path testing for doing the unit test for their own code. And the effectiveness of this particular path testing they rapidly deteriorates as the size of the software aggregates under their test increases. Now, the second important concept what we have to know about is the bug assumption. So here the bug assumptions that what we do for the path testing strategies is that something that has gone wrong with the software, so that it makes it take a different path than what exactly it has to intended to do. For example, if you use a go to X where go to Y statement has to be intended. So here in structural programming languages, they prevent many of the bugs that are being targeted by the path testing. So as a sequence of effectiveness for the path testing for the languages, which is reduced, and for old code programs like COBOL, ALP, Fortran, and the basis. So here the path testing is indispensable. So here this path testing, since we are using in the old programs, so we are going to use this path testing in the programs like COBOL, Fortran, basis, ALP, so on. Now let us see what are control flow graphs. So a control flow graph is a graph. So it is nothing but it is a graphical representation of the program's control structure. And it is used to eliminate the named process blocks or decisions and junctions. So here a flow graph is something which is similar to our earlier flowcharts, with which it is not to be confused. So here there are different flow graph elements. So here a flow graph contains 4 different types of elements. One is process block, second one is decisions, third one is junctions, and fourth one is case statements. So here, what is a process block? A process block, if you can see, it is a sequence of program statements which are being uninterrupted by either decisions or junctions. It is a sequence of statements such that if any one of the statement of the block is executed, then all the statements thereof will be getting executed. So formally we can say that a process block is nothing but it is a piece of straight line code of one statement or hundreds of statements. So here every process block, they have one entry point and one exit point. And it can consist of a single statement or instruction, or a sequence of statements or instructions, a single entry or exit subroutine, a macro or a functional call, or a sequence of these. Now coming to the decisions, here you can see how we can represent a decision. So here a decision is a program point at which the control flow can diverge. So here machine language conditional branches and conditional skip instructions, which are some of the examples of these decisions. And most of the decisions what we use in our programs are two-way. Of course, we don't mean that two-way, only two-way. There are three-way branches also in the control flow. Now coming to the case statements, fourth one. So here a case statement, which is, if you can see, it is an multi-way branch or decisions. So here the case statements, what we are going to use are a jump table in the assembly language, whereas case itself in the Pascal case statements. So these case statements, of course, we have discussed in our C programming language also. So from the point of view of the test design, there are no much differences between the decisions and the case statements. Now coming to the junctions, fourth one. So here a junction, which is a point in the program where the control flow can merge. So here, if we take few examples of the junctions, the target of the jump or the skip instruction in the ALP, a label that is a target of go to. Okay, so junctions generally we use in the jump statements, and jump statements that what we use in our assembly programming languages or other programming languages where we are going to use the go to. Now let us see the differences between the flow graphs and flow charts. So here a program's flow chart, which is going to resemble something like a control flow graph, whereas in a flow graph we don't have to show the details of what is in process block. So it flows in every part of the process block when it is drawn. And here the flow chart that is going to basically focus on the process steps, whereas a flow graph that going to focus on the control flow of the program. So here the act of drawing the control flow graph is a useful tool that can help us to classify the control flow and data flow issues. Now coming to the notational evaluation, here the control flow graph, which is the simple representation of a program structure, and here the notations they change made in the criteria of the control flow graphs. So here the process boxes were not really needed. So there is an simplified process of every line that is joining the junctions and decisions. So we don't need to know the specifications of the decisions, just the fact that there is a branch. So here the specific target label names are not important, only the fact that they exist, that's all. So we can just replace them by using simple numbers. So here to understand this, let us go through a small example. What we can see in this particular figure 2.2, which is the program which is written in a Fortran-like programming language, which we call it as an program design language, PDL. So here this program that corresponds flowchart can be represented like this. So here the first step in translating the program to a flowchart is shown in this figure, if you can see. So here we have typically a 1-to-1 classical flowchart. For suppose here input x comma y, z is equal to x plus y is equal to x minus y. If z greater than or equal to 0, go to SAM, else if not, we are going to execute joy. Z is equal to Z minus 1. Then we go to SAM. So if it is S, we go to SAM. Where is SAM? SAM is here. So this is what is an junction box. So this is how we are going to represent the flowchart. So here we have to note that the complexity has increased and here the clarity has decreased. That we had to add an auxiliary labels, so which don't have any actual program counterpart. Now, if you can see in this particular figure 2.4, that is the control flow graph. Here, what we did is we merged the process steps and replaced them with a single process block. So here, these three particular statements, input x comma y, z is equal to x plus y, y is equal to x minus y, that we have merged as a single process block. So here, this is what we call it as an control flow graph. But even this particular flow graph representation is also still too busy. So we can simplify this notation further to get the flow chart like this. So here we can see clearly the control flow, how it is going to look like. So the flow graph, it can be represented, of course, like this, or it can be represented like this, or if we can write a much more simpler version for the flow graph for the same program. Now, let us see how we can represent the program in a linked list representation. So here, although the graphical representation of the flow graphs are revealing the details of the control flow inside a program, they are, of course, they are often inconvenient. So here in the linked list representation, each node which will be having a name. So these are the names, and there is an entry on the list for which each link in the flow graph. So here only the information that pertains to the control flow is shown. Now let us see the flow graph program correspondence. So a flow graph which is a pictorial representation of program and not the program itself, just as a topographic map. So we can always associate the parts of the program in a unique way with the flow graph, because many of the program structures, they are unique way with the flow graph parts, such as if then else constructs, which consists of combination of decisions, junctions, and process. So here the translation form of a flow graph elements to a statement and its vice versa is not always unique. Okay, so here they are not always unique. If you can see in this particular picture, so this particular if statement can be represented in any of these three forms. Not only these. So see here, if it is yes, yes, but you can write no, no, and here yes, yes, it will do the same logic. So here, this particular if statement is not having any junctions, and it is having the single decision. The same flow graph, can be represented with two decisions and one junction like this, or two decisions and one junction like this. So in both ways, my logic is going to work the same. So here, an improper translation form of a flow graph to a code during the code can lead to bugs. And improper translation during the test design may lead to the missing test cases and causes the undiscovered bugs. So here in the logic, so here you are writing, see this, for this logic, writing, drawing a flow graph or a flow chart like this is good. So if I write here yes and here no, or here yes and no, then definitely the logic is going to go with a different way. So exactly our logic is not going to work properly. So we have to take care that whenever we do our flowchart with more complications, we have to take a proper care for writing this. So here, let us see the different generations of the flow graph and flowchart generations. So here, a flowcharts can be handwritten by the programmer, or it can be automatically produced by a flowcharting program, which is based on some mechanical analysis of the source code, or a semi-automatically, which is produced by flowcharting program based in parts on a structural analysis of the source code, and in path on directions given by the programmer. So here you can write the programs with your hand or fully automated by using some mechanical analysis, or semi-automated. Some part of the flow graph is being drawn by the machine and some part of the logic will be explained by you. So now let us see the path testing. What is path, what are nodes, and what we call them, call links. So here, what is path? A path through a program is a sequence of instructions or statements that start at the entry or a junction or a decision and that are going to end at another, and which are possibly the same junctions or decisions or exit. So here a path may go through several junctions, processes or decisions, or one or more at a time. But here the path, they consist of segments, where a segment is a link, that is a single process that lies between the two nodes, and a path segment in succession of consecutive links that belong to the same path, or the length of the path is measured by number of links in it and not by the number of instructions or number of statements that are executed along that particular path. So here the name of the path is the name of the nodes along that particular path. Now let us see the fundamental path selection criteria. So here there are many paths between the entry and exit of a typical routine. So every decision doubles the number of potential paths, and every loop that multiplies the number of potential paths by number of different iteration values that are possible for the loop. So for defining a complete testing, we have to exercise every path from entry to exit, and we have to exercise every statement or instruction at least once, and we have to exercise every branch or case statements in each direction at least once. So here, if we take an example of, we can by seeing the examples we can easily understand. So here in the perception one, if x less than 0, then we are going to 200 label. Else we do x is equal to x plus a, and the 200 label we are calculating x is equal to x plus a, and 300 that continues after this particular statement. So after this statement, we are going with. So if the condition is true, we are going to 200. Else what we are doing, if the condition becomes false, we are calculating x is equal to x plus a, then we are going to 200. So this is perception 1. In perception 2, if x less than 0, go to 200. Else we go to 200. So even if it is true or false, we are going to the label 200. So which makes no sense. So what is this? This exactly is the 200 is nothing but it is the label. So here this is the junction. So junctions, as we know, that are represented with the circle. So there is no meaning in writing such a kind of if statement. So whether if the condition is true or false, it is doing the same thing, then unnecessarily here we are writing. So there is, we generally do such kind of mistakes. So let us see one more perception 3. So here, if x less than 0, we are going to label 200. If it is equal to 0, we are going to label 150. If it is equal to greater than 150, we are going to the label 150. So here we have a label 100, x is equal to x plus a. Then we go to 100. So these two statements will never get executed in the program, because see, x either will be less than 0 or equal to 0 or greater than 0. So once that is less than 0, it will go to 200. If it is greater than or equal to 0, it will be going to 150. So we never go to this particular space. So here also we have not mentioned what exactly is the label 100. So here this 100 is an hidden loop. So the hidden loop around label 100 is not revealed by the test, which is based on perception 3 alone, because no test that is going to force the execution of the statement 100 and the following go to statement. And furthermore, this label 100 is not flagged by the compiler, as it is an unreferenced label, and the sequence go to does not refer to an undefined label. So here, let us see the path testing criteria. So here, any testing strategy that is based on paths, it must at least both exercise every instruction and take branches in all directions. So here, the set of tests that does this, which is not complete, is an absolute sense. But if it is complete in the sense that anything less much must leave something which is unrestricted. So here we have explored 3 different test criteria or strategies. Of course, out of potentially infinite family of strategies. First one is path testing, PINF. So here this particular path testing that executes all possible control flow paths through the program. So typically this is restricted to all possible entry and exit paths throughout the program. And if we achieve this perception, then we are said to have achieved 100% path coverage. So this is the strongest criterion in the path testing strategy family. But of course, it is generally impossible to achieve this kind of path testing. There is one more testing criteria, that is statement testing. So here, statement testing, we call it as P1. So which executes all statements in the program at least once under some test condition. So if we do enough tests to achieve this, then we are set to achieve 100% statement coverage. So an alternate equivalent characterization is to say that we have achieved 100% node coverage. And this is also denoted by C1, capital C1. And this is the weakest criterion in the family, because testing less than this for new software is unconsiderable. And it should be criminalized, because we cannot accept this kind of testing. And the third type of testing is branch testing, P2. So here executes enough tests to ensure that every branch which is alternative has been exercised at least once under some test. So here statement testing, we are exercising for each and every statement in the program, whereas here each and every branch that exists in the program. So if we do enough tests to achieve this perception, then we have achieved 100% branch coverage. So here an alternative characterization is to say that we have achieved 100% link coverage. So here links. And we denote this particular branch coverage by using a capital C2. So statement testing is denoted by capital C1 and a branch coverage is denoted by capital C2. So for structured softwares, branch testing and therefore the branch coverage, they strictly include statements coverage. So if we are able to do statement testing and branch testing, then there is no need for path testing. And if we do path testing, then both the statement testing and the branch testing, they get covered. So here we must have common sense while applying these strategies. So here branch and state coverages are accepted today as the minimum mandated testing requirements. So my question is, why not we use a judicious sampling of paths? What is wrong with leaving some code untested? Because if we are leaving some part of the code untested, it may lead to bugs in future. So here not testing a piece of code which leaves a residue of bugs in the program in the portion of the size of the untested code, and there is a probability of chance of occurrence of the bugs. So the high probability paths are always thoroughly tested, if only to demonstrate that the system works properly. Now my question is, which path to be tested? Here we must pick enough paths to achieve both C1 plus C2. The question of what is the fewest number of such paths, which is interesting to the designer of the test tools, so that can help or automate the path testing. But of course, it is not crucial to the programmatic design of tests, and it is better to make many sample paths that a few than doing a few complicated paths. So here we can do path testing. So here some practical suggestions in path testing is we have to draw the control flow graphs on a single sheet of paper, and we have to make several copies, as many as we need, so that we can cover C1 plus C2 and several more tests. And we use a colored highlighted marker to trace the path, that is copy the paths onto a master sheet, and we continue tracing the paths until all the lines of the master sheet are covered, which indicate that we appear to have achieved both C1 and C2. And as we trace the paths, we have to create the table that shows the paths, that coverage status of each process and each decision. So here, the graph what we see, this graph has to be drawn on a single sheet, and we have to make several copies of this particular control graph. Then once after having several copies of this control graph, we have to take a color marker and we have to highlight the path. That is, see here we are beginning, then we go to A1, so this has to be colored marked, then we go to B, then we go to C, then we go to D, then we go to E. We are at the end. So here A, B, C, D, E are highlighted. That is one piece of paper. Then that is one path. For the next path, we have to take another copy of the graph. So the path can be from A, we can come to B. From B, we can go to H. From H, we can go to K. From K, we can go to G. From G, we can go to D. From D, we can go to E. So we have to highlight A, B, H, K, G, D, and E. This is our second path. And the third path can be something like this: A, B, C, D, after D, F, after F, J, after J, G, after that D, and after that E. This is the third path. Another path can be A, B, H, after that I, after that L, again B, C, D, E. This is another path. So what are all the different paths that are available? We have to draw. So here so many paths. See, we can repeatedly do like this. See, again going through. Already we have tested A, B, C, H, K, G, D, E. So we can go like this: A, B, C, H, I, L, I, B, again H, K, J. There is no need. So what we have to do is we have to represent it in the form of a table. So after we have tracing a covered path, we have to set the master sheet and fill it in the table for every path, and we have to check so many things. That does every decision have an yes or and a no in its column or not? We have to test whether it is decisions are having yes and no in the column or not. And we have to see whether every case of all cases statements are being marked with this correct symbol or not. So is if we have three-way branches, less, equal, greater, then we have covered that C2 or not. If we have links, we have to see whether we have covered C1 or not. So all these things we have to mark by making several copies of a control flow graph and also by seeing this particular table. So here there are some revised path selection rules. So we have to pick the simplest functionality which is sensible for entry and exit path. And we have to pick the additional paths as small variations from various paths. And we have to pick the paths that do not have loops rather than the paths that do have favor to short paths that make sense over the paths that they do not have. Then we have to pick some additional paths that have no obvious functional meaning, only if it is necessary to provide the coverage. And we have to be comfortable with our chosen paths. We have to play our hunches and we have to give our intuition free rigidity as long as we can achieve the C1 plus C2. And we should not follow these rules blindly, except for the coverage. So here, let us see the different loops. So here, in the loops, the cases for a single loop can be covered with two cases. One is looping and not looping. But experiences, they show that many loop related bugs are not discovered by C1 plus C2. So here the bugs, they hide themselves in the corners and they are going to congregate the boundaries. So in the case of loops, at or around minimum and maximum number of times the loop can be iterated. So this minimum number of iterations is often 0, of course, but it need not be. So here, let us discuss the case one, that is a single loop, 0 minimum, where n is maximum, and no excluded values. So here, what we do in this particular case one is, we try to bypass the loop with 0 iterations. If we cannot, then we either have a bug or and 0 is not the minimum and you have the wrong case. So here we could use the loop control variables being negative, which could or which makes it appear to specify a negative number of iterations. Then what happens to such a value? One passes through the loop or 2 passes through the loop? A typical number of iterations unless they are being covered by the previous test cases. So here we may do one less than what is required or one more than what is required. So by this, what happens is we are going to get a wrong answer. So our logic will not work properly if we are doing one less or one more iteration. So we have to do the iterations the same way. So if we have to do 10 iterations while writing the logic, by excluding the values, we may go one less or one more. So we have to take care while writing such kind of loops. Now in case 2, single loop, non-zero minimum, no excluded values. So here in this particular cases, the bugs that arise may be one less than the expected minimum, or what happens if the loop control variables value is less than that particular minimum. So what is going to prevent the value from being less than minimum? That is the minimum number of iterations. Or what is going to happen if you are going to do one more than the minimum number of iterations? So once unless that is being covered by the previous test, or twice unless being covered by the previous test, a typical value of one less than the maximum value or the maximum number of iterations, this attempts one more than the maximum number of iterations. In case the single loop with excluded values, that is, we are not going to consider the boundaries. So here we treat single loop with excluding values of two sets of tests that consists of loops without excluding the values, such as case 1 and case 2. So in case 1 and case 2, no excluded values. So here we are excluding the values. So these are the three different cases. So here we have to see what are the different kinds of loops we come across. So there are three different kinds of loops that what we are going to consider with respect to path testing. One is nested loops. So here in the nested loops, the number of tests to be performed are nested loops and will be the exponent of the tests that are being performed on single loops. So here we cannot always afford to test all the combinations of the nested loops or iteration values. Here the tactic what we use for such case is to discard some of these values. So here see, we can clearly see we discarded. So here we started the innermost loop and see that all the outer loops to their minimum values. So here we test the minimum or minimum plus 1, typically maximum minus 1 and maximum of the innermost loop, while holding the outer loops at their minimum iteration parameter values. And we expand the tests as required for our out of range, and we are going to exclude those values. And if we are done with the outermost loop, then here if you can see the go to step 5. Go to step 5. Go to step 5. Else move out one more loop. Else what we are doing, we are moving out one more loop. And where we are setting up at step 2. Second, we can use concatenated loops. So here concatenated loops, they fall between single and nested loops with respect to the test cases. So here the two loops are concatenated if it is possible to reach one after the existing, the other while still on the path from entrance to exit. So if the loops cannot be on the same path, then they are not concatenated and they can be treated as an individual loops, of course. Then the third kind of loops are horrible loops. So here the horrible loops, which is a combination of nested loops or the use of the code that jumps into an out of loops, intersecting loops, hidden loops, and cross-connected loops. So here, this makes iteration value selection for test cases and awearsome, and they are going to perform the ugly tasks. So which is another reason for such structures should be avoided. So it is always better to avoid the horrible loops because they are going to have the ugly structure. Now, all these things, they depend on the loop testing time. So any kind of loop can be lead to long testing time, especially if all the extreme value cases are to be attempted, like max -1 or max +1. So this situation, which is going to obviously be the worst for nested and dependent concatenated loops. Now, suppose if we consider the nested loops in which the testing the combination of extreme values which lead to long test times, then we have several options to deal with them. So even though proven that by combining the extreme cases which are hypothetically possible, they are not possible in the real world situations. So we have to put limits or checks that prevent the combined extreme cases. Then only we have to test the software that implements such safety measures. I hope you understood what exactly I said. So here, these bugs that are going to arise, if we are not going to choose the correct path. So while using these decisions or loops, we have to see the logic, because these bugs, they cannot be identified. See, we can correct the syntax or semantic errors, we can correct them, but logical errors, it is what we have to put a special care to identify those kind of bugs. So while writing the logical bugs or the bugs that come because of the runtime, we have to be a little bit cautious while writing those programs or while constructing those flow graphs. So I hope you understood this. So that's all for now. And if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for the latest notifications. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.